Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies, and welcome to a How to S-Tank. So, there are a number of things to keep in mind if you'd like to enjoy your experience with the S-Tank, and that is why I've made today's video. First off, the S-Tank is different. It has certain strengths and certain very noticeable limitations that you are encouraged to embrace before you try to do well in the vehicle. And before I say any more, I'd say that, in my opinion, the S-Tank is fairly good at getting an average result, a kill for a death, if you will. Maybe maybe a little better if you use the right strategies, but it has a difficult time excelling. And that comes down, once again, to its limitations that are currently on display. So first things first, this is a hull aiming exclusive vehicle. You can see that we're using the hull aiming mechanic, lit up with mouse button 5 down there in our controls, and we're making use of our autoloader at long range. I don't know why I always use the Francophile. What happened to my round there? We'll talk about that in a moment. But the gun of the S-Tank is fantastic. The aiming system is trash, and it probably always will be. If you're hoping to see improvements with the whole aiming mechanic to the point where it operates just as well as a turreted tank in the game of War Thunder, you're probably hoping for a miracle, and I wouldn't recommend it. But that is the number one limitation, that if you can get over the fact that the gun is going to be difficult to aim, it's going to be imprecise, and there are certain situations where you are not going to be able to effectively aim the gun. As soon as you accept that and find a way to work that into your strategy, you can start enjoying the S-Tank for what it is. So what makes it worth it to deal with this huge hurdle? You can see there's my aiming circle, and the reticle is just a bit off of that because the game just can't handle these small adjustments. I have the suspicion that engine power is not set to, or throttle is not set to an axis for ground vehicles, but it's set to a binary value. In other words, you can mash go as hard as possible or just do nothing at all. And then the gear you're in and the response of your engine determines your acceleration. Now, why does that matter? The S-Tank has a very complex and sophisticated drivetrain in real life that allows it to make these fine adjustments with a relative level of ease, allowing you to aim at long range. And we're going to go out in our, what is this, 821, just for a little bit of fun, because we heard some helicopters in the sky. So enjoy this little diversion while I talk about the aiming system for the S-Tank. The driver in War Thunder is not like a human driver who can apply a huge range of pressure to the go button, usually by your foot or by some steering tillers. In War Thunder, you're either mashing that pedal as hard as possible or not at all. So what does that mean for the S-Tank? It means that very fine adjustments are impossible. So the hull aiming system will jerk around the reticle and overcorrect and then recorrect and sway, wiggle, wobble, jibe, and just not make the little fine-tuning correctments Fine-tuning correctness? The hell am I talking about? Anyway, you get the idea. Aiming with the S-Tank is jank. And yet, if you have a few seconds to get onto target, you can usually find a firing solution, and the gun and the autoloader are fantastic. Got it? Good. I spent a lot of time explaining that because that is what makes everything else about the S-Tank everything else about the S-Tank. And I could have done it a lot better. I'm not that good at making guides. Anyway, what do you do about the fact that the S-Tank is difficult to aim? And it really just takes a few seconds to get onto target. That's what it boils down to. You will be able to acquire targets. It's not difficult to adjust for distance with your fantastic high velocity cannon that fires around every 4 seconds if you're aiming in the right direction. The best thing is to engage at long range. This will also make your armor much more effective, as at close ranges almost everything that you face can put their cannon down into your upper hull armor and negate just enough of that sloping to punch through with a Heat FS or APFS DS round. So, engage at long range when possible. That is a fairly severe limitation on the vehicle, especially with the current meta of War Thunder that we can probably see into the future that encourages short-range maps, short-range engagements. The S-Tank is not as versatile as you want it to be. But again, it pays off in terms of firepower, and it is still a premium vehicle. It's definitely something different. What else does the S-Tank have going for it? It has an extremely low profile, which is fantastic for giving you an opportunity to duck behind cover, either soft cover to break the enemy's line of sight, or hard cover to make it impossible for them to get a shot on you. And you can move about unnoticed. It doesn't have the best mobility. In fact, I would say that in terms of mobility, it lags behind most tanks at its battle rating, as it currently sits at 7.7, with even some heavy tanks able to outpace it. Adding to that the fact that you don't have a turret, so you cannot quickly acquire targets in a close range environment. No, that is an allied mouse, but I was dropping some smoke on him just in case he needed a hand. I saw there were a lot of enemies there, so if I smoke up his booty, then that shouldn't bother him with aiming forward, and if he wants to retreat into that smoke, he'll have the option. And that's another thing to mention about the S-Tank. Smoke rounds are essential. You have no other means of producing defensive or offensive smoke screens, so I carry around 10 smoke rounds. So you can see how many I started with in this battle. And because your gun reloads so fast, every round having access to that 4-second autoloader, unless you're putting out a fire, which is stupid, but whatever. It's very helpful in general to carry smoke rounds for any vehicle that doesn't have smoke dispensers, especially if it has such a fast reload rate. And specifically for the S-Tank, it is essential because, again, you don't have a turret, and that means that if you take a round anywhere in the front half of your tank, you will have either your engine or your transmission or both incapacitated, and you'll probably also be on fire. Now, what does that mean for you? It means that you will not be able to aim at all. You can't aim up, down, left, or right. when your engine or transmission are disabled. And because they're all modeled as large blocky units, and you cannot make use of the second engine if the first engine is taken down, they're modeled as the same engine. It's very, very common to have those disabled the first time you take a penetrating hit. Another reason to not take a penetrating hit, but something that is extremely frustrating if you don't just accept that this is what happens when you're in the S-Tank. The only thing that can help you survive at that point is a smoke screen, giving you time to put out your fire, repair, and reposition. Pray to the spaghetti meatball monster that you have your cannon in a position where you can lay a defensive smoke screen. Bonus points if you see the round coming and decide to drop smoke before the calamity. But here you see ATGM comes in. There is nothing we can do against ATGMs, and so we just have to accept our fate. But that's just the way things are. Not a lot of vehicles can survive ATGM hits, and the S-Tank is no exception. We did our best. What else can be said about this vehicle other than what I've mentioned? If you can get used to the fact that the gun handling is the poorest of all vehicles in its battle rating and possibly the game, the gun is fantastic. The mobility is subpar. The stealthiness of the vehicle is fantastic. It is the ultimate ambush tank once you get your gun on target. And here, demonstrating the survivability of the vehicle. We took a round. It disabled our drivetrain, so we're unable to aim. We're taking shots. We've dropped smoke, which makes it impossible for the enemy to accurately aim at our weak spots. Speaking of, that would be the commander's cupola on top and certain parts of the lower plate where it's rounded to make room for the transmission. Other than that, again, at a range of 800 to 1,000 meters, you are nigh impervious to most standard rounds in the game. Again, ATGMs and large high explosive rounds will prove that false. But look at that, bomb lands so close to us and the terrain protects us, partially I'm sure, because of our extremely low profile. So that is the S-Tank. What strategies should you employ to make use of its unique strengths and weaknesses and special features? Well, I hinted at it earlier when I said it is the best ambush tank once you get your gun on target. Generally, the best strategy is to set yourself up. You can see we did not use the best strategy there. We did not have access to the best strategy there. You want to set yourself up in a position that has support from your teammates behind the front line so that you're not the first person targeted, behind some soft cover and a small rise. So if you have some bushes at the top of a little rise, that's a very common occurrence in War Thunder, you can poke over that hill, aim your hull down, fire through the bushes using your binoculars, or push just in front of the bushes and aim and then fire precisely. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that you can see that the gun has fantastic magnification right now. Gaijin always reserves the right to fuck that over. But the gun has great magnification, so you're able to aim very carefully and get those shots in. Long range, sniper position, take your shots, back behind hard cover, and observe until another target presents itself. Target people who are not focusing on you and profit. And that's exactly what we're going to do in this match that I'm showing you here. Another advantage that the S-Tank currently has is that you get 3 spawns in the vehicle because nothing else is available to back it up in terms of Swedish vehicles, which begs the question, why play the Strv now? Because you can train your crew, and crew training is essential. Less so for the S-Tank because it has that fantastic autoloader, but still essential nonetheless. You can use the S-Tank to train multiple Swedish crews if that's your desire, if you're hyped for Swedish tanks, and it really looks like they're going to be an interesting tech tree unless Gaijin really screws that up, which they're capable of doing, but I have high hopes. So, engage at long range when possible. Typical sneaky boy, stealthy ambush tactics when possible. What about when those are not possible? Well, the first thing you should do, and I really should have mentioned this a lot earlier, when you're repositioning, is to disable hull aiming mode. You will not be able to drive at an efficient rate with the gun constantly trying to reposition itself by slamming on the brakes and taking control away from you. So, turn off hull aiming mode, check the map, follow a teammate you really don't do well on your own, and center the suspension of the vehicle. I have that bound to the numpad, so the hydropneumatic suspension, the only control that I actually use is to center the vehicle. Everything else happens so fast that it's really just kind of useless to try and manually control that with the keys. Again, it's not on an axis, it's a binary key binding, so things tend to flop around more than they should. Welcome to middle age. Anyway, along with that, again, obviously the S-Tank does not have a stabilizer, so your cannon barrel flops around as well. But you can see that at these ranges, the enemies that I'm facing have effectively no chance of punching through my armor, so I can just go shopping and see who needs shooting and take care of business. So when you are in close quarters with the S-Tank, my advice, don't even try to use hull aim. Just drive your tank toward the enemy and just shotgun around into their vehicle. Focus more on putting yourself in a good position, and your fantastically low profile and your quality cannon will do the rest of the work for you. Another thing to note is that if you're having issues with the hull aiming mechanic, as you see us having there, just a little bit of manually moving forward or back can help with that, because the game still has a hard time figuring out how to aim while you're on an uneven surface, or if you have even the smallest of obstacles blocking one of your tracks. And that is pretty much the extent of this guide on the S-Tank. The rest is just more demonstration of how this vehicle actually works out in the game. You've seen us take some embarrassing deaths, but in the end, at this tier in War Thunder, once an enemy notices you, you're usually dead. So the armor of this vehicle and the survivability of this vehicle are great, except for the fact that unlike with a turreted tank or anything with the ability to actually aim the gun when the engine is down, you're pretty much guaranteed to be helpless for the whole time that you're repairing. So again, smoke shells and a stiff upper lip are highly recommended. This is a vehicle that will frustrate you if you don't embrace its weaknesses. Making use of its strengths is fairly straightforward. In fact, the more straightforward your target is, the better. And getting used to its weaknesses is essential. But that's something I've already said. So, after all of this, would I recommend the S-Tank? I have had a lot of fun in it, and I've had a lot of stress in it. I feel like I'm just starting to embrace the S-Tank for what it is, and it is not a highly competitive vehicle in the game of War Thunder. It's sort of a meme tank, but it's a meme tank that can do reasonably well. If you face off against the S-Tank at long range, it seems godly, overpowered. If you play the S-Tank, you realize what it is. It's a lot of jank. It's sort of like three midgets standing on each other's shoulders wearing a trench coat and wielding a very large shotgun. They might get one very effective blast, but that's about it. Anyway, who would I recommend the S-Tank for? I enjoyed it. I'm glad I bought it. I'm glad that I sold my Merkava Mark IIB to subsidize some of the cost for this tank, because I don't think it's worth $50. It is worth less than $20 that I paid for it, along with cashing in another tank that I just don't feel like playing. I don't like high tier meta. 7-7 is already uncomfortably sweaty for me. Who would I recommend the S-Tank for? If you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy the S-Tank. It's tedious, it's awkward, it's often frustrating. It does require learning and building new skills, and it does pay off for doing those things. The post-penetration effect of your rounds can be very disappointing as well, but you only have to wait another 4 seconds. Going on eternity. Who would I recommend the S-Tank for? That's a tough question. Maybe that's why I keep asking it. So I've just gotta say, this is the S-Tank. If you buy it and you don't like it, don't tell me that. Because I warned you. You've seen for yourself what this vehicle is and what it does. These matches that I've shown you are fairly typical matches for the S-Tank. And these are matches where I probably could do better in some other vehicles. But there's really nothing I've seen that's better at the long-range sniping game once you actually get on target. So, if you like being sneaky, if you like overcoming challenges, if you accept that the whole aiming mechanic is never going to be good and it's always going to be frustrating, we get it, Napalm Rata. We know. Stop expecting Gaijin to actually fix things. Yes, that's right. Embrace the idea, and this might not happen, but it probably will. Embrace the idea that this tank is never going to get really fixed in the game of War Thunder, and you will be able to enjoy it. And if you're willing to spend $50, or I'm sure it'll go on sale at some point, to get access to the Swedish forces before other people, to train your crews, to get a 7.7 battle rating rank, what is it, rank 4 or rank 5? It should be rank 5. Ground vehicle that is a premium, that does have good rewards, that probably won't get nerfed any more than it already has by getting its battle rating increased, which is fair. And it's not like you really face a lot tougher armor at this tier anyway, so your gun is still quite good. Close to being the best in the game. If you're willing to accept all those things, you can enjoy the S-Tank for what it is. A derpy boy. This is a derp tank. This is one of the best derp tanks in the game. So, what do I mean by derp tank? So let's clarify here, because clearly this doesn't have a one-shot spud gun that takes an eternity to reload. It's a different kind of derp tank. I think that my decals on the back of this vehicle explain what it is fairly well. It's an awkward boy. It's the kind of vehicle that you take out when you want to experience War Thunder in a different way. In a stupid way. This is for stupid thunder, okay? This is for extra chromosome thunder. This is when you want to stop enjoying a polished, historically relevant World War II shooter tank game and play War Thunder for what it really is. A barrel of piss that's still fun. So, this is an extremely awkward, odd tank that's difficult to do well in, but capable of doing well. It'll drive you nuts. It'll drive up your battle activity. It will enrage the enemy team when they actually get targeted by this thing. It will enrage you when you don't get the kind of results you hoped for with a hit. But it can definitely change your experience in the game of War Thunder. And that's the S-Tank. Hope you guys enjoyed, and there's a link to my Discord in the description of this video, which is the best way to get a hold of me. Catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.